Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Live from Bauhaus Studios in beautiful downtown Port Credit, it's the Tom and Rick Show for Wednesday, August 26th. Tonight's guests, from Adventure Canada, Jason Edmonds, former recording company executive and now executive director and co-founder of Canada's Music Incubator, Velo Mazic, former glam rocker, now martial artist and TSN MMA commentator, Robin Black, public school trustee for Wards 1 and 7, John Marchant, musical guest, Story. Also tonight, Cooking with Carson, and returning to Undercover of the Night is Sean Pynchon. And now your hosts, Tom Barlow and Rickford Van Dyke.
Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tom and Rick Show. How have you all been? How have you been, Rick?
I've been pretty good, man. Pretty good. Good weather, nice and hot, lots of golfing, lots of outdoor patioing.
Excellent. I played a gig.
You played a gig.
I've not played a gig in 5 months. Thanks to Shore.
Really good.
It was super fun. Thanks to everyone who came out. I will be back there Sunday. And we have live music.
Yes, we do. At the Shore this Thursday, it's Phil and John. Remember them? They had a Tuesday there.
Fantastic band.
They're going to be doing a residency on Thursday, I believe. And Saturday, they're there as well. Friday, it's the Grady Brothers at the Shore. Sunday, it's Senor Barlow again. And what's that? Was that 5 to 9?
5 to 9.
5 to 9 on Sunday. That'll be Tom. And at Spice, we have Kurt Godwin on Saturday.
Amazing.
And Johnny X on Sunday. Johnny X is 3 to 7.
Excellent. So lots of live music in Port Credit. I'm very happy to have our first guest here today. I've known Jason for a long time. He works for a very unique Canadian exploration company called Adventure Canada. And he's here to talk about what Adventure Canada does, how they responded to COVID, and the role of music in Canadian Northern culture. So, Jason, thank you very much for coming. How have you been?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing fantastic.
Can you tell
All
us a
things
little
considered.
bit about Adventure Canada and what you guys do?
Yeah, Adventure Canada is a family-owned business. We've been operating out of Port Credit for many years, in operation for about over 30 years. And what we do is a small ship expedition travel to some of the most remote regions of the world. Our mission is to engage, entertain, and educate our passengers and to connect them to each other and to the land through innovative travel experiences.
Wow, that sounds super cool. And how did they find you? Or how did you find them?
How did I join Adventure Canada?
Yes.
I'm Inuit from Nunatsiavut, and Adventure Canada and the Nunatsiavut government, which is my regional government, organized a training program with the opening of Torngat Mountains National Park. And I was part of a cohort of 5 that traveled with Adventure Canada to learn the ins and outs of the travel industry and hospitality. And that was 11 years ago now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now I've traveled on Adventure Canada flights, cruises, I suppose, events, explorations. What do they call them?
We call them expeditions. We really dislike the word cruise.
Right, as you should.
And it doesn't really describe what we do.
No, it doesn't.
And what we do is very much focused on getting out on the land and connecting with people. And our vessel is only a means of getting from A to B.
Right, right. No ice sculptures, which is great. Now, one thing that's very unique about your company is you integrate music. So you integrate musicians. That's how I happen to meet. I've met Barney Bentall. I've met great writers like Margaret Atwood. Mm-hmm. What is it, or how do you prioritize that, you know what, we've got to get rock and roll singers or famous writers to come on these trips?
Well, what you often see on expedition vessels is a strong emphasis on science and academic learning. And it's very important, and we try to incorporate that as much as we can into our programs. But what often is missing, and what Adventure Canada has really made our focus, is elevating the arts to that same level of education and learning as the academics.
Right.
So you'll not only find marine biologists, ornithologists, archaeologists, you'll find musicians, authors, painters, sculptors.
Right.
And that really came about, and this was going on well before I joined Adventure Canada, is a understanding that people learn in different ways, and people have different interests, and they have different paths through learning.
Right.
And having that broad spectrum of outlets just turned out to be an incredible benefit to our passengers.
Well, I find it an unbelievable experience as an artist who's been on those trips. It's unbelievable experience, and you can see the effect that that the whole package has on the people who come and take these trips. So it's really great. Now, take us, if you will. The company is growing. You've moved to a bigger ship. Your trips are sold out. You're winning awards around the world. You're doing all this great cultural and economic work, and then March hits, and suddenly people don't want to be on a ship with 100 other people, and suddenly borders are closed, and you have this big machine. How did you pivot? How did you survive?
Well, it's not really something I want to relive, the March and April.
Yeah.
But it was quite a big hit to us. This was set to be our biggest season yet. 2020, our operating season is from June to October,
Right.
Pretty much because we're operating in very northern regions. And it was very difficult for us to move through what was going to be our biggest season yet to having to cancel our entire 2020 season.
Right.
And we really did that because it's not something we want to take into communities.
Right.
We're traveling to isolated, therefore vulnerable places.
Yeah.
And we canceled well before it became mandatory to cancel, just to protect the places that we're traveling. But after that, Transport Canada imposed a no-go to the Arctic,
Right.
For expedition cruising, which pretty much eliminated our entire 2020 operation.
Right. Now, it's very interesting. I learned on an Adventure Canada trip about the devastating effect of the Spanish flu.
Exactly.
I in school I didn't really learn about that, but I learned about it there. So it's almost, you were able to go, look, we've seen this once before. This had a devastating effect on northern communities, and I suppose the coast of Labrador got badly hit, right?
Yeah, the 1918 pandemic was brutal, and actually, I have family that lived in Okhok, which was almost wiped out at the time. And what you see also is that memory lives on in communities. So this pandemic brought back memories of the impacts
Right.
of the last, and we in no way can be involved in that kind of devastation. So it was an easy decision to make, though the impacts have been quite difficult. But I mean, we were able to make it through. We're looking forward to a strong 2021 season. We've had a lot of our passengers that feel the same.
Right.
I think that travel is very important to the education of the world. It's something that people are passionate about, not because it's something they want to do, but it broadens your experiences, your possibilities, and that's the reason why people will continue to travel once it's safe to do so again.
Now, before we ask you to grab your guitar and do a tune for us, what's new for Adventure Canada? What's coming up? New trips, new experiences?
Well, our experiences are going to be adapted quite a bit. And with COVID-19, right now we're navigating what changes can we make to our programs that'll make them elevated in terms of a health and safety perspective. And we're working with communities, we're working with governments on how that'll move forward. But for new programming, we're really excited about a we've been developing this program for the past number of years, but the Basque Country.
Right.
And Spain.
My homeland.
I know. And this really came about. We were chartered by a Basque company, 5A Incentive Planners, to do a Basque history-themed expedition around Newfoundland, because there's strong whaling history there. So we ran this expedition for this company, and they had there are a bunch of Basque people on board, learning about Basque history in this place they've never been to. And it was just such a cultural experience, and something outside I've never experienced that kind of culture and that kind of excitement before. And from that, we started working with this company on building a Basque, so pretty much now bringing our passengers to the Basque Country.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you do, those kinds of connections.
Absolutely.
Well, we're gonna ask Jason to do a song for us. So it'll take us just a couple of seconds to get him set up, and we'll be right back with Jason Edmonds from Adventure Canada, and for the first time ever, a song in Inuktitut. We'll be right back.
So I'm going to play a song. It's the anthem of Nunatsiavut, which is the region I'm from in northern Labrador. It's written by a man named Sid Dicker, and it's about the region of northern Labrador and how and why people who are from there love it. And you won't be able to follow along, but you can just imagine. Ilingia chamot Nunatsiamon, beorin la boke ne tuinamo. Chaimal utaino le simarat Nunatsiami. Nalagdwala te longa, beoret la punga. Innere amek Labrador me. Chakaswang e pote utin a pipsunane. Nanoit poelo in a reangene. Hopswang et kopla pot no natsuami. Tuttoid amagot dere annalo no nangene. Dusaneret la taka, nilit nile amata. Takolo talo Atlantic sitjami. Ikalunyalo talo, okalinyalo talo. Ate hange lak Labrador silak swami. Chakaswang e pote utin a pipsunane. Nanoit poelo in a reangene. Hupswang et kopla pot no natsuami. Duttoid hamaret dere annalo no nangene. Well, there's not much more to say, but I know I'm here to stay. To live and hunt and trap on this great land. But most of all to me is to have the liberty to be a son of northern Labrador. 'Cause its rugged mountains rise above the ocean, where the polar bears and seals are to be found. Sparkling rivers flow through mountain valleys, where the caribou and the wolf and the fox are bound. Tuttoid hamagot dere annalo no nangene.
That was amazing. Welcome back, my friends. Here we are. Rick, usually we would not get into the hard stuff this early in the show.
No.
But we have a very exciting, very unique guest right now, and we are going to talk about things that fascinate me. We have with us Robin Black. Robin, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Proper,
Cheers.
proper 12, Colin McGregor's whiskey. Very good.
It is good.
So I met Robin. You and I met probably, I have a vivid memory of seeing you at a bar in Calgary. You're playing with Robin Black and the Intergalactic Rock Stars.
Love that band.
You are on stage with no shirt on.
Yeah.
You're grabbing sweat from your chest and flicking it at the audience. And I said, this is the greatest rock band I have ever seen. And I became a fan. I loved the whole vibe. And we would talk occasionally.
Yeah.
And you would say, I'm really getting into martial arts.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be a fighter. I was like, that's a leap. And now you are the go-to analyst in Canada for MMA and martial arts. Can you describe that journey professionally, how it happened, emotionally, how it happened, and how you got to where you are now?
Well, the fact that you would ask me that question makes me super grateful and proud, kind of. Like, when I was a kid, if somebody told me that you'd sit around with a friend and said, how did you go from doing these really interesting things into these other really interesting things, I would be super proud of that. So thank you. It's a cool, I'm happy with the sort of the different path that I've taken. And it's exciting. I always prioritized curiosity and fun over stability. Although now I have a very stable career that kind of ended up taking shape. But as a kid, I liked Alice Cooper and Bruce Lee. And I didn't know that you really had to choose between the two of them. Right. So I grew up and I wore eye makeup and I tight pants and danced around and sung in a rock band. And there was a period we did too many drugs and we had a bad lifestyle and it was really, really rough. And in the middle of a tour in England, I had a seizure and I kind of came back to Canada and I was like, I gotta clean up my life. I think I'll start training martial arts a whole bunch, which I did as a little kid. And that was sort of my thing that I had done as a child. So I started to train martial arts and then within about 6 weeks of that, I'm like, I'm 100% going to fight professionally in a cage. And
nice.
Everybody thought I was crazy. That's a punchline in an episode of Friends for real. It really
that.
is. Yeah.
Right.
And I did, and I fought 9 times, and it completely changed my life. And to me, martial arts is art. It's not that much different than punk rock or painting or jazz or any of these things. It is a sport, but to me, it's an art form, and I've always looked at it that way. So it felt kind of a natural extension from wearing tight pants and doing high kicks on a stage to fighting a guy in a cage to pontificating about it, on television.
Well, is that sort of like the secret weapon you have? Is that most people who are analysts come from an athletic view of what's happening in the ring or on the ice, and you're coming at it from a creative one. Is that how you think you became so unique in what you do?
It's definitely a part of, it's my real perspective. I'm also, I wouldn't say I'm contrarian, but when things become too structured, hyper-structured, or formulaic in anything in the world, I start to dislike it right away. So if everybody was wearing, plaid pants and grunge clothes, I wanted to wear eye makeup and tight pants. And if everybody is talking about something the same way, I look at it a different way. But a lot of these things, like the things in the world around us, how you should act if you're a mathematician or a police officer or a singer or a sports commentator, are just structures. Like, they're not real. You don't have to talk about hockey a particular way. You don't have to talk about review movies a particular way. You don't have to, this show is probably completely different than you guys thought it was going to be 14 days, 14 episodes ago,
yes,
right?
It is.
And you allow that to happen. And that's the beauty of doing anything creative, is rather than imitating how you think it's supposed to be, you just go and be an artist and let it take shape. And it's easy to say now that I have a really nice living doing something that I love. There was a lot of times where it was very uncertain. I was the weird one, and I didn't feel super welcome in the sports world because I wore eye makeup and tight pants. But now that I have followed that all the way through, it makes more sense to me now.
Right. Now, I'm also very curious about what you do is a global phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And so this was something that, it seems to me, who didn't really follow it closely, was 1 minute it seems this is an illegal sporting activity that gets busted, and the cops come to, this is
Legit sport.
mainstream. You've got billionaires who have come out of this sport, and it's global. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference of martial arts when you see it in Asia or you see it wherever around the world you've seen it?
So yeah, this is right up my jam. Like if I talk to you about music, you can tell me about, what the roots of Ethiopian music from 100 years ago, how that shaped jazz or reggae or whatever. And all of that is very, very real if you're a connoisseur of something. Like if you offer me wine, you say red wine or white wine, I know the difference between red and white wine. I don't know the difference between regions, but to a wine connoisseur they do. And martial arts is the same way. Last year this time I commentated a 1,000-year-old martial art called Letway. It is a Burmese bare knuckle martial art that allows headbutts. In a cage, I was sitting next to the ring where an orchestra of Burmese musicians behind sort of a dragon statue played instruments I'd never heard of with a unique style of music as these people fought. I commentated in Africa last year, China, Russia. On one trip, I did 16 different kinds of martial arts in 2 weeks. And all of them, all slightly different, because just like every country you go to has a little different flavor of food.
Right.
And Mexican food is kind of like South American food, but if you really know it, it's different. Fighting is the same way. Humans express this art form. Two unwilling dance partners with conflicting objectives, they do it in different ways that are unique to every region. So MMA, the sport as we see it now, is this thing we've seen since the 90s, but human beings fighting for sport or entertainment or excitement or to express themselves has been going on as long as there's been humans. So that's what I love, like to look at this art form in its purest form.
And do those moves, I guess we'll call them, do they get distilled into MMA? Do people sort of go, whoa, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, the
Maybe we
Brazilian
should
one.
try that.
Okay, the Brazilian style of fighting I've seen in MMA.
For sure.
Like those kicks that come out of nowhere, all of a sudden there's boom, and then some commentator
guys
goes, Brazilian, yeah.
Bending your arm backwards.
Yeah, Brazilian something. That kick is a Brazilian something. I've never heard of that, and
For sure.
there's a lot of fighting styles.
So that is what we see as sort of this modern sport. This basically, in the late 90s, early 2000s, an American company brought all of this over and said, let's just go figure it out. You guys all go fight and we'll see what works best. And ultimately, the same thing that happens in any other art form, music, for example. What's better, country music or punk rock?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know it's punk rock, right? But like, ask anybody else and they'd say, well, that's subjective. But if we wanted to make the greatest music we could, we would slowly take bits and pieces from each.
Sure.
You know, great music today has little bits of the blues and little bits of everything in it. And fighting is the same way now. There's this modern expression that we now talk about as a sport and is presented as a sport, which takes bits and pieces, some 1,000-year-old concepts, some things that are just simple philosophies. If I push really hard against you, you can either push back or you can use the philosophy of non-resistance and let me go by. Some are ancient philosophies. It's a very, very complex and beautiful art form that when we watch it and we don't know a lot about it, we see two angry tattooed dudes punching each other's faces in.
It's not that. It's not like that though.
No, you're right.
It's not a bar fight.
No.
Like when the Gracies brought jiu-jitsu to MMA, changed the game.
For sure.
This guy was beating the shit out of everybody bigger, and they figured out why. And then all of a sudden, all the MMA guys,
then everybody
they started learning jiu-jitsu, brought it to the forefront.
That is super cool. And another thing I've found very interesting about the mainstreaming of martial arts, I mean, it's a billion-dollar business all over the world.
Dana White.
Is they've managed to create a niche for women in sport. And they've managed to create household names where you have superstars, bona fide superstars, where outside of tennis, it's really difficult to find female athletes who have become bona fide superstars. Maybe there's a couple of soccer players. I don't know anyone in the WNBA.
Mostly tennis though, right?
But mostly tennis.
Yeah.
But somehow martial arts has done it. How do you think they've approached athletics where women have been allowed to excel and become superstars?
So I think women, men, people of background, tall, short, whatever, I think part of it is it's a truly individual and individualized expression. So any two people will fight in their own ways. And fighting, like music, you can hear or you can feel the life experience of the fighter. Whether you know that's what you're seeing or not, you're seeing their life experience. The same way when you hear a blues guitarist play those notes, you hear he's playing a CGD just like I did, but somehow you hear his journey in it. And I think you see that. But I think if we try to look at, and it's beautiful that you brought this up, that tennis is another one. What do those two have in common? Well, they're an individual sport. They're very physical. The athletes, we don't suppress femininity either. We don't suppress the individual. You happen to be beautiful, you happen to be funny, you happen to be charming, you happen to dress a particular way. We kind of celebrate that. And I think all of those things are parts of it. But you're right, like Ronda Rousey is a world superstar. Really. Yeah, you know, and she just fought other women in cages as the root of that. But when she did it with a visceral quality that you could see that, and it's a reflection of how she grew up. Fighting also reflects how hard you work and what you learned, and it's self-examination. Where am I weak? Where could I improve? What can I do to make myself better? And all of that's kind of rolled into those moments when people fight.
It's such an amazing thing because, as you said, the average people are going to roll their eyes and say, there's blood on the mat.
Yeah.
This is insane. Haven't we evolved past this? But you see this philosophy, you see this intellectualized, it's almost like a religious approach to getting better, challenging yourself, challenging your opponent.
What did the boxing people say when MMA first came out? It's a human cockfight. And that was just disgusting.
And now, who watches boxing?
Sophisticated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
sophisticated fighting is what it is.
It is. Once upon a time, there was poetry. And poetry was really interesting. And then somebody put music to it. And I'm sure the poets thought that wasn't very pure. Right. Now, all of a sudden, we've combined this art form with this art. No, we can't be having that. Right? And then later, we took all of that and somebody rapped on it. And that is how we hear music or how we see a collage or any of these things is exactly the same process. Once we used our fists, now we use some other stuff. Then later, we did it a certain way and we changed the rules. Martial arts is as pure of an artistic expression as any other art form. It just happens to be, and this is another element I think that is beautiful, but also it adds tension. You have a dream tonight, and so do I. When one of us is when one of us succeeds tonight, the other on some level is going to fail. That tension is at play whenever two individuals compete.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Now, what is exciting for you now? What's coming up, either in mixed martial arts or in your journey as an individual? What are you looking forward to?
You know, right this minute, I was literally supposed to be wrapping up the Olympics. So I was booked to commentate boxing, taekwondo, and karate at the Olympics. Oh. Yeah, and so to me, that one, and so I'm looking forward to hopefully that happening next year, because that is a different layer. You know, when I was a little kid, my parents drove me 2 hours each direction from a small town in Manitoba to Winnipeg to train for 2 hours while they sat there. And there was no phones or anything. My mom would knit, and I don't know what my dad did. I think he just sat there and thought, and then drive back 3 times a week for like 10 years of my life. And I was not, you know, you get into glam rock, your path is not one that your parents expect one day you will commentate that thing that as a child they brought you, they made that sacrifice. So I was really looking forward to that, and I'm still looking forward to it. Of course, when it gets held back, I feel bad, but I feel a lot worse for the athletes who've dedicated their entire life to those moments. But
it just occurs to me, this is, the Olympics. This is it.
The Olympics.
The Olympics. You have reached the mountaintop of this career. And one of the reasons we're drinking, this is Conor McGregor's whiskey right here, is because this is sort of the demonstration. I've been told, I don't know if it's true, that he makes as much money on this.
More. I think more now.
More. Yeah. And there is a guy who says, I am not a one-dimensional person. I'm going to do multiple things. And Robin Black from Intergalactic Rock Star, Olympic analyst.
Analyst.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure it has been to have Robin here today to share his journey and his wisdom. How can people follow you online? Because your online videos, Robin does something, is it called Bink?
They call them 1 minute breakdowns or 2 minute, but Bink is my individual sound effect for when somebody hits somebody.
And it is the most hysterical thing because he'll find, a grandma wiping out on a toy in the pool, or like 2 drunk guys fighting, and he'll break it down with the most sincere analysis of MMA. It's the funniest thing. So how can people find that?
Yeah, I love doing those, and those kind of they've made me better at doing my job in any way. And they literally it's simply, if you're curious and you want to explain things, that same process applies to whiskey or fighting or a woman in a pool or the news or whatever. That's the same process. But I do those all essentially every day for the last 5 years of my life. I make one or more every day. On Instagram, I'm at Robin Black Martial Arts, and I think I've done 1,500 of them there.
Wow.
At Robin Black Martial Arts on Facebook, at Robin Black MMA on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Robin Black. So around all of this work, this is what I do. It's my calling and my passion and my job. So I'll work 40 hours a week gainfully employed with partners doing this, and then I'll work another 40 doing it because it's my art and I want to get better at it. So I share it everywhere all the time.
Right on.
Well, if that's not a life lesson in success, I would suspect that you probably are training as much as some of those Olympic athletes. So
We're going to go in the backyard when this is done. Cage match in the garden.
ladies and gentlemen, this has been Robin Black. What a pleasure, and we will be right back. Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wasn't that fantastic? We heard a song in Inuktitut on the show.
I like how the part where he said, now if you sing along if you want to. And we're just like, well, we can't.
Folks, I'm very excited to have a Juno-nominated, remarkable young artist on the show today. Her name is Story. She has quite a story to tell us. Nominated for a Juno, bags packed, ready to go to the airport to have this moment that she's been working for so many years of her life, and then the Junos are canceled, flights are canceled, and here she is with us to do a song from her upcoming album?
Actually, it's from the album that came out in February.
Chapter 3, The Come Up.
Yes,
Okay, and what's the name of this one?
A Lost Find.
A Lost Find. Ladies and gentlemen, Story, joined by Louis on piano. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. Flying high, terrified to let go of this balloon. Say goodbye to this heart, say goodbye, and then sing a soft tune. Doo-doo, doo-doo. I've been looking left and looking right, trying to find a love that's foolproof. Where I'm looking, things don't happen overnight. I'm not sure that it's true. And how about you? Love, will you find me soon? You, love, will you find me soon? You. broken like this flower will never bloom. I've been searching for the way to turn dried petals into sweet perfume. I've been lost inside this maze between love and pain and losing my pride. Will you find me a place in your heart before I die? Don't want love like this. No, you don't want this kiss of mine, of mine, of mine. It is a lost find. I wanna cry sometimes. I wanna lie in someone's arms tonight. Oh, oh, before I die. I wanna cry. I wanna cry.
Well, that was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And now, I'm still a bit in a shock from that one.
Yeah.
That's like just some powerful stuff you just
Yeah.
laid down right there. Absolutely beautiful. Great job, Louis.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about your situation. You are climbing this crazy entertainment music business ladder. You get an agent, you get a tour booked, you're playing Canadian Music Week, you're playing the Toronto Jazz Festival, your album is doing great, and then the world says to you, it stops now. How did you emotionally recover? What did you do musically? How did you survive it?
Right. Well, it was really hard. And I think it was really hard for a lot of people. So I know it's kind of sad to say, but like because everyone's in the same boat, it feels a little bit less crazy because it's not just you in that boat.
Right, we're all in it together.
Exactly.
Sure.
But at first it was hard, and I was a little bit depressed, and I took a few days to mourn. I had just released my debut album not even 30 days before this all happened, so like my whole life was kind of culminating to this point, and then
Right.
all of a sudden, bam, it was kind of, the wind was knocked out of my sails. But I don't know, music is my savior, and it's always been kind of my therapy, so I decided that I was going to create another album,
Right.
which I'm releasing on September 5th. And it's called Interlude 19, and it's kind of about this interlude that we're experiencing in our lives.
That's a great word for it. We
Yeah.
are in an interlude.
Exactly. It's like a flash in the pan, and it seems like it's so long, and it is quite monumental, but it's kind of just kind of separating these two times. So the time before COVID and a time after COVID. And I don't know how things are going to change, but this music really helped me get through it, like creating it. And I hope that it will help others and that they'll hear their own thoughts kind of reflected in this
And
record.
where can the viewers, I'm sure you're going to make some fans today, where can the viewers find you on socials, find this new album, find previous stuff?
They can find it all on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple. It's going to be out September 5th, as
And
I
it's
said.
Story with 2 R's.
Yes, Story with 2 R's, Storry. And they can find me on all the social media and my website at Story Music. So Storry Music.
Great.
And storymusic.com. It's pretty easy. It's the same handle for everything.
Well, we're so glad you took the time to come in. Thank you guys very much. Thanks for that beautiful song. And please go out, find her online. Story is a remarkable person and a remarkable writer and performer. And we will be right back. Welcome back, my friends. We have a guest on the show right now who is going to answer some questions about the nature of the music business. And not only is he going to answer them, he works for an organization called Canada's Music Incubator that connects people who are passionate about the music business and gives them mentorships and guidance. Vel, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about Canada's Music Incubator, what you guys do, how you're surviving in COVID-19, and sort of the overarching principle of the organization.
Okay, first, thanks for the invitation to be on the show, guys.
Great to have you.
A unique setting to be on camera doing an interview. I'm going to try to do my best to remember that series of questions, Tom, because you piled them up on me. I think there's 3 of them. So I'm going to go number 1, which is what CMI is, or Canada's Music Incubator. We're a national not-for-profit organization. We're based in Toronto. And our whole objective is to work with new and emerging artists to build them up from a business standpoint, from a creative standpoint, and also from a personal development standpoint to have sustainable businesses and long-term careers. I mean, that's what we do in a nutshell, right? And a lot of that is done through programs catered towards artists. We have something called Artist Entrepreneur. We do one for artist managers. So we work with managers and music companies in addition to artists. Right? And we just, we guide them along and we provide ongoing mentorship. One thing, I come from a major label background, and so Tom, with your background, you understand that building a career does not happen in 8 weeks, 4 weeks,
right.
52 weeks. Like, it's a process. And so what we try to do is get them in the door, get them kind of build their foundation up. Sometimes we've got to break them down and build them up. Sometimes they've got somewhat of a foundation, but then the whole idea is to kind of be there on their journey. So once they come through our doors and they spend time with us, then they go out into the world, they're running their businesses, and they reach out to us. They can connect with us at any time, and we help guide them through whatever they're dealing with in the moment.
And young entrepreneurs, young artists, when they come to you, what are some of the biggest preconceived notions they have that you have to break down? What are some of the myths
I think to me, the number one thing is that it takes time, right, to build a business. Like, it's no different than starting a restaurant or a laundromat or a bakery. It's going to take 3 to 5 years to build any business, and it's a process to get to sustainability and ultimately profitability. And so the patience, right? The young generally want to see things move quickly. We move in a very quick world these days.
Right.
But business development, career development, to me, for the most part, you have to commit to the process. And so I think that's number 1. And then number 2 is that anybody is obligated to care about what you create and put out into the world.
Right.
Right? You have to command their attention. You have to be great. Right? Nobody owes you anything. I'm not obligated to listen to a Tom Barlow record when it comes out.
Right.
I am.
He has to.
I like the fine folks of Port Credit and other people, but you know what I mean. Like, you have to command. You have to be great. There's so much music out there now. The internet has been a great equalizer in terms of accessibility to the music industry, but it has also got in the way because there's a lot of people making music, quite honestly, that shouldn't be.
Right.
And anybody that is talented has to kind of fight their way through that initial wave, right? And then kind of fight their way to kind of get to that next level. And we've seen an erosion of middle class. We have everybody kind of down here, and then you got those big artists. And part of our mandate is to see if we can reestablish a middle class. Get them to the point where partners like labels and publishers and booking agents will be interested in working with them.
Well, that's interesting, building a middle class, because it seems to me like when you and I started working together, Vel and I started working together, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
It would have been early 2000s, as I
Early
recall.
2000s, yes. And Val was the vice president of Sony at the time and was in charge of radio marketing, amongst other
And
things.
PR, yeah.
And I had a #1 Hot AC song with this man at the helm. Now, that was a world where we could still sell a CD for $17.99. How?
In Newfoundland, probably.
Yeah, but how could you take a product now that's basically free? You have all these people that are saying, "I'm passionate about business. I want to learn the ropes. I'm going to take the courses." And then you say, well, if you get 8 million plays on Spotify, you're going to get 75 cents.
Oh, here's Spotify again.
How do you make
Well, it would be
that
8 million times, it would be 8 times 5,000, so it would be about $40,000 you would get for those 8 million streams, Tom.
$40,000. Okay.
Yeah, so think about a million streams, about $5,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 1 million streams.
$5,000.
Whereas 1 million plays on radio would have gotten you
Depending on what it was.
substantially more. So what are the revenue streams
Yeah.
that young musicians today learn about?
Well, listen, the toughest thing, you're right. The hardest part is getting to sustainability because right now, in terms of revenue streams, and this is where COVID comes into play, the #1 revenue stream for artists, especially in the new and emerging phase, is being on the road and playing live.
Right.
Right? And so this is, everybody's like sitting there going, what do I do now? That is my livelihood because it takes a while. Remember I said about the process, about people getting into your music and songs. All those other revenue streams tend to kick in once you've established yourself a little bit more. Those take some time, but you can immediately go out there and earn some revenue, whether you're doing originals or covers or combinations, right? So this is the biggest problem, and because you don't have that physical, people can still buy physical product at a show, and some artists will sell it depending on their audience. But really, it's more of a souvenir than anything.
Right.
You know, is this? Oh, what's this circle thing here? What do you do with
it's a
this?
poster.
or cassettes even. You know, all these things. They're really just to support artists. It's a real challenge to get to sustainability. So other income streams, people look for. It could be merchandise, but that's often connected to touring. People then want to get into synchronization, which is basically audio visual. So having your song placed in a TV commercial or a film, right? But that becomes very competitive. Everybody wants those slots. Every other revenue stream has become, something that everybody's going after because you don't have the physical product, and the streaming revenues just aren't up to where they need to be, right? The tech companies are doing well, but the creators are not being compensated their fair due, and I think that's an obvious.
Right, and hopefully that will change. It's up to us, I suppose, to push that change. Now, one of the interesting
and legislation and government understanding technology. Canada has been really slow in terms of copyright reform, all this stuff. Our copyright board is like behind years in terms of rates and all kinds of things.
And is that something you teach in the program?
Well, we don't get into that stuff. We make sure artists understand, their rights. Right, so I was just talking to artists today. As an independent artist, you control your songwriting if you write the song. You are what we consider self-published. Right, so you control your music publishing. You perform on a recording, and then if you pay for your recordings, you're also what we call the label or the maker. So you basically have 4 sets of rights, which come with 4 different sets of revenue streams, in addition to your traditional touring and merchandise. And so it is complex for artists to understand how the money flows in the music industry.
Right.
And so that's a big part of what we try to do is kind of have them understand. Here's how you earn. Right? If you do everything by yourself, you can get paid 4 times for releasing that one song.
Right.
Right?
Brilliant. Yes. Now, one of the things that makes Canada's incubator so unique, I think, is that its main office is inside a record company.
Yeah, we're based in Toronto, so we're co-founded. I'm one of the co-founders, and my other 2 co-founders are the owners and operators of Coalition Music, which is a long-standing artist management company in Canada. So when artists are in our building, they're actually in an active music industry environment. So it's not a bunch of people that are working in the past and remembering the good old days from the 2000s. And Tom, do you remember when the power went out when we were in Montreal?
But you know what I find interesting is there's so many people right now claiming to have answers that have no idea how the business works. And I see young artists all the time, and they'll say, well, I got this going, so I'm going to be a star now. And I said, well, you're not.
No, I think what they realized very quickly, and what I realized over my 30 years in this business, is there is no one answer. Everybody's kind of on their own path, and what works for one person, you can try to mimic that, chances are it's not going to work. There's best practices, but there's the uniqueness of the art and of that personality that separates. And so you can't just copy paste.
Right.
You know, it does not work that way. It just doesn't.
Nor should it. I mean, we're in the arts after all, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's path has to be different. We're not building widgets.
Yeah, but the problem is, so you go on the internet, and what happens, artist gets conflicted because this person says this, their mom says that, their friend says this, and the artists are coming to us saying, I'm paralyzed because I don't know what to do or where to go because everybody's giving me a different answer. And so I'm lost.
Where do they find you, Vel? Where do they find Canada's Music Incubator? How can they look at your programs? How can they find pricing and so on?
Well, it's simple for us. I mean, listen, when we started, we were very under the radar kind of thing. We wanted to make sure what we were doing was right, was actually serving and benefiting artists. Most people find us, honestly, by word of mouth. Right? We take a limited amount of artists per year that we work with, but they find us online. So our social handle is @CM Incubator. CanadasMusicIncubator.com is our website. That's how they can find us.
And we have a lot of young artists who appear on the show and who watch the show. Mm-hmm. What time commitment? Is this something they would be at Canada's Music Incubator for a month? Would it be a year? What sort of a time investment where they can feel, okay, I think I understand, I have my feet on the ground in the business now?
Well, we've taken all that into account, and so we realize people don't have the time. As professional artists, we're not working with students, we're working with professionals. So this is their livelihood, right? And they often have day jobs in the early stages or night jobs, whatever you call it, odd jobs, maybe 3 jobs, to make ends meet. And so we work in terms of what we call our core program. So our artist entrepreneur, artist manager programs, they run 8 weeks. And they come to us 4 days a week for 6 hours a day. And we work with all genres, by the way. We are what I call genre neutral, genre agnostic, whatever you want to say. Right. The more diverse, the better. As far as I'm concerned, we'll have anybody from a Filipino gong band, a gong punk band, to somebody who's interpreting Muslim poetry. It doesn't matter to us. We're working with artists. We're not about the labels. We're not about having hits. That's not our job. Our job is to get people sustainable. Whatever their definition of success is, that's what we work towards. We don't tell them what to do. We don't tell them what to wear. We offer guidance. We offer best practices. And they can't commit to 2 months because that's still a big commitment. Right. So what we've done, and just before COVID hit, we launched one-on-one online mentorship. So somebody can come up and find us either through our website, or there's a platform that we use as our back end called Mentorly, where we do all our hosting, and people can just go online, find us, pick any of the CMI team, and they can buy a bundle of 3 meetings of 1 hour for $150.
Right.
And they can book it whenever they want, and they can access us, and we kind of coach them through it.
Well, that sounds great. It's great information. Young artists out there, not necessarily young, if you're just looking to get into the business, I can tell you from experience that these guys know exactly what they're doing because they've done it, because they've had success, because they know the system. So thank you very much for coming on, Val. Did we leave anything out you wanted to bring up?
I think it's great. It's over already? It's
over.
Yeah. All right, my first trip to Port Credit, all of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Vel Omazik.
We didn't talk about Barlow in the Barlow days.
That stuff. I'm tired of that stuff. Vel Omazik from Canada's Music Incubator, and we will be right back.
Hey guys, this is Cooking with Carson. My name is Carson Freeman, and today we're going all the way to Jamaica to make a delicious dish that's signature to that area, and it is jerk chicken. Some of you might have called you a jerk before, but you gotta just let that roll off your back. And hopefully, though, they were calling you jerk in regards to this delicious sauce that we're gonna make. It's actually a paste, and we're gonna get started right away. Today, I brought my food processor with me, and we're gonna add all sorts of ingredients that combine to make this very unique but delicious flavor. The 2 main ingredients are gonna be this here, thyme, okay? And I actually was able to source some Jamaican thyme. It's very similar to what we have here. It's pretty much the same. It just grows a little bit bigger. So the little florets on there, they're gonna be a little bit bigger. And I have some allspice, which is common to a lot of Jamaican cooking. Okay, I have some cumin, some cinnamon, garlic, yellow onion, brown sugar, green onions, and I have 2 habanero peppers. I grew up in Northern Ontario. I have a background of Scottish and Finland. The hottest spice in my kitchen was black pepper, so this is a far cry from there. And really delicious flavors that I'm gonna get started on right now. I have in my processor some vegetable oil.
Okay, put it in.
Okay. Okay, I have 2 more ingredients that I'm gonna combine into this sauce. This paste, I should say, and one of my favorites, some lime juice. These are beautiful, juicy limes. And the last is gonna be just a little bit of W or Worcestershire sauce. Lots of tropical dishes have lime in it, and I just think that's just such a key ingredient to kind of remind me of summer. And we're ready to get this thing blitzed. Okay, we got our paste blitzed. I think it's ready to go. We can already smell it really nice. You can use different peppers if you want, but these habanero peppers really have like a fruitiness, and you can kind of get that through the oils, the smell of it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this bowl here, I got a mixing bowl, and I'm gonna put my chicken in here, just so I don't have to use my, my hands to touch it right now, okay? And I already salt and peppered that. And now I'm gonna just take the jerk paste and I'm gonna pour it on top of the chicken. There's lots. And with my tongs, I'm just gonna mix this up in here. One of the reasons I'm using the tongs instead of my hands, as they would traditionally do it in Jamaica, is just those oils can really get in there and burn your, if you're not used to it. And some people will use rubber gloves. And I know, save your cards and letters, I'm being a bit of a wimp. Usually what you'll do is you'll put these in the fridge and you'll marinate it for even 48 hours. The recipe that we're doing today is really cool because you can get the authentic flavor of jerk without having to marinate it for a long time. So I'm gonna take a break and just bring it over to my pan and we're gonna cook it up. Okay, my chicken is ready to go in the pot right now. I have some vegetable oil heating up. I have some extra paste that I'm gonna keep, and we'll cook that out. We'll use it to baste the chicken before it goes into the oven. If you're doing these traditionally, you're doing them outside on a grill and you're constantly flipping them over. So what I like about this recipe is once we get them kind of browned in the pan and then put them in the oven, we don't have to babysit them like we would on a charcoal grill. Okay, my chicken is browned really nicely. Before I put it in the oven, I'm just gonna baste a little bit more of the sauce on, okay? Jerk chicken has more of a black kind of caramelization as it's often grilled. And we're gonna see a little bit of that happening too. I'm just doing the one side. I can flip those halfway through cooking. This is a cast iron enameled pot, so very hot. So let me get it right in the oven. Okay guys, it's been about 40 minutes. I'm sure the chicken is fine. Let's check on it right now. Oh yeah, Montego baby, that looks awesome. This is a brownish color, more on the brownish black side. Like I mentioned, it will be that color. It's not burnt, it's perfect. That's exactly how you want it. The caramelization of the brown sugar and the habaneros gave it this beautiful color. So I'm ready to plate it right now. I'm just gonna take 3 pieces, okay, for plating. And you know I could eat all 5 of these, they're delicious. And I'm gonna bring them over. Let's get this plump guy right over here. And I'm gonna bring it over here where I have some rice and peas. Rice and peas is very much the traditional side dish that you're gonna have with jerk chicken, okay? A lot of the great flavors that we use for our marinade are in here too. That's called marrying the flavors, when we're using some flavors from both sets of dishes, the main and the side dish, they're kind of blending together. The main one being allspice. So I'm gonna kind of do a little teepee shape here. Nothing super fancy, but I'm just gonna cross these over, okay? Let's move this back here. And I have some scallions. These are cut rather large into pieces about this big here. But the reason I'm doing that is because that's how I had it the very first time I tried jerk chicken in Jamaica, okay? They're a little bit superfluous, but they do add some really nice color. And what happens with these colors, it draws the eye, just makes it a little bit more appetizing. Not necessary, but the sauce, everything here, absolutely fantastic to make your own jerk chicken at home any time of the year. Try this at home. Let me know how you think it is. Back to you, Tom and Rick.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in beautiful downtown Port Credit, Ontario, and we have a key figure in Port Credit. He is the school board trustee for Ward 1, which is our ward, and Ward 7. What an honor it is to have John Marchand here. Thank you very much, John, for coming in.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Now, for those of you that don't know, including myself, what does a school trustee do?
A school board trustee is elected to be part of the school board, and the board of trustees are responsible for oversight and governance of the Peel District School Board. So over 250 schools, over 120,000 students. We oversee policy, we oversee money, we oversee governance. We are responsible for the hiring and firing of the director of education, but other than that, we don't take an operational role. So as a trustee, we don't have a particular voice like a councillor does when elected to the city. So
Right.
we're not here to represent wards 1 and 7. I'm here to be part of the board.
Right.
So that's one of our functions, is that governance function, and that's what under the Education Act we're really empowered to do. And we have some limitations there. So I don't speak today on behalf of the board.
Right.
As only the chair of the board, as elected by the board, is able to speak on behalf of the board. So my opinions today are my own.
Right.
I'll be happy to share them and talk a little bit
Well,
about what the information the board has.
I mean, I'm super curious because I don't recall ever in history since I've been alive so many people talking about education. With the COVID-19 situation, we have parents who are being told, you're a terrible parent if you don't send your kid to school because they need socialization. You're a terrible parent if you send your kid to school because they might get COVID-19 and the province has not issued satisfactory guidance. So how are you responding to these parents who are just saying to you, give us some clarity so we know what to do?
And that's great, because that's the other role of the trustee, is to be to be an avenue for information and concerns and help parents navigate through the school board system. So if they're having problems with teachers or a principal or a school placement, we field those questions and point people in the right direction and help them navigate and shepherd them through the system to try to get to a happy resolution. For COVID, I wish I had a perfect answer for everybody out there today. I don't. There are no perfect answers. We're dealing with as I said, over 200 schools, students from K to grade 12, from Mississauga to Caledon. So we're dealing with a lot of different moving parts there as well. I think as many people are aware, the ministry has been changing their guidance, their funding levels, and their direction to the school boards on an almost daily basis as well. And then, of course, we're trying to balance that with the teachers' union certainly have a stake in this. Teachers deserve the right to work in a safe environment, as does everybody in Ontario. So we're working with the teachers and the teachers' unions, which may not always have the same goal. Our principals, our custodial staff, and of course the parents, who are also in a very unique situation. If you're a healthy parent with healthy kids and not a lot of contact with people who are at great risk, you probably don't have the same concerns about somebody going back to school. For people who are living in multi-generational families where somebody's immunocompromised, there's a much bigger risk. So this isn't the same question and the same calculation for every parent. So what we're trying to do and what we're trying to work with the ministry and with our partners is to come up with a variety of solutions that will work for us in the short term. We're not looking at something for the next 3 years or 4 years. We're hoping to get, let's get something open in September. Let's get some kids back to school. The reality of not having kids back to school is, I'm sure many of you are aware, so many of our musician friends who are out of work. How long can we keep the economy not going, and what's the long-term health effect of that? If you're not generating money, if you're not generating the economy, those dollars don't go back into healthcare. Those have very real long-term healthcare costs as well. So balancing all those are very complicated decisions. And of course, there's some politics in there, there's belief in there, and there's a lot of bad information out there as well. So,
well, that's one of the reasons we wanted you on here, is to try to get some good information, because everyone seems to be an expert, and you can't, in my opinion, really fault parents who, it seems to me like, the province is saying one thing, but the province is very big, and there might be 0 COVID-19 cases in Northern Ontario somewhere, and surely those kids should not be held to the same standards as someone in Peel or Toronto. Now, we were talking just before we went on air here that you have a background in mental health as well.
Yeah.
How does that inform your work as a trustee?
I spent almost 20 years working frontline with youth mental health and youth addictions, which gradually took me into youth justice as well. In working there, I saw the horrible effects that the imbalances in the education system and most of our society, frankly, have on marginalized communities. So whether you've got a mental health problem or an addiction problem, or you come from a family that doesn't have the same social, economic status as your neighbors. We know if you're poor, certainly if you're a minority, a visible minority, if you don't present yourself as cisgendered or the norm, you tend to get marginalized, and those are exponential factors. So it was really sort of sad to watch these young kids I watched who came from a difficult background, really work their ass off to try to make a difference, and the system just beat them down over and over and over again. And then sadly, I'd end up, running into them in the youth justice system, and I now work in the adult correctional system, so running into them there as well. So just seeing these failures, and very predictable failures of kids steered along these same routes. It's not a big secret that our jails are filled with young black men. That's a result of the system. It's got nothing to do with young black men making bad decisions. Right. It's we as society aren't giving them the really good decisions to make.
I just can't think of another person who would have said, I've seen this kid in grade 8. He was working hard, and then you see him go through the system.
And it's funny you bring that up, as I just on the weekend ran into a gentleman in my jail who I was at his grade 8 graduation. I worked with my ex-wife, who was a principal. We got him into a good school placement. We got him through grade 8. We held him through that year. Sadly, mental illness has taken its toll, and the system just hasn't supported him. And now he's predictably involved in the adult correctional system, where we end up with too many people with mental health problems.
Right. And COVID-19, from what I understand, particularly impacts the people you're talking about. They're overrepresented in people who are affected by COVID-19.
The fewer resources you have, the more everything's going to affect you. If you don't have a credit card to put stuff on, you can't put it on there.
Right.
And we know that the people that are relying upon credit cards are going to be hurting for the next 2 or 3 years as they try to pay off that outrageous 30% interest rate.
Right.
Those of us who are, lucky enough and privileged enough to have some resources to pull upon, and that's many of us in Port Credit. We've got certainly the richest neighborhood in Mississauga. We've also got some poor, more challenged neighborhoods as well,
Sure.
close together here. But those with that privilege, I don't know how easy it is for us to put ourselves into the position of those people who are choosing between rent and clothes, and now they're forced with back to school and having to buy masks for their kids, and the guilt associated with that, because they don't have a choice. Right. They have to go back to work because the rent's got to be paid.
Right. Well, it's a fascinating insight you bring. If you were to point parents to one place online where they can get quality information they can rely on, where would that be?
So I was prepared to answer some questions about going back to school and stuff today, but what I would like to say is, because I don't know whoever's watching this, are you watching it now live or are you watching it tomorrow?
We do both.
Yeah, so to all of those people out there, the Peel District School Board website is updated regularly. Go there regularly. Go to the school, email the principal. Most of our parents know that principals respond. The teachers will be responding to email after this week as well, as they start to come back. Peel District School Board. Just you put in the Google board, it is pdsb.com. There we continue to update it. We're going to have some more updates coming out, I believe, today around the delayed and staggered start times. So some more information on that one. I believe Mr. Lilly slammed us today in the Sun about our lack of preparation for online schools, but we're trying to create an online school for 30,000 people from scratch.
Right.
An offer across the board. It's easy, no problem.
Easy.
With no extra money.
Exactly.
Right.
Although the government did say we could spend some of our reserve funds that were trying to use for the backlog and repairs in schools. But so we're trying to do all this on the fly and with a moving target, not knowing how many students are going to come back. So September will be a little messy. I apologize for it, but we will live and learn with that. But perhaps to put that into scope, Peel Public Health, I've been working with them closely over the last bunch of months as we've dealt with COVID in the community and through the correctional system and the mental health system. Toronto Public Health as well. They're very on top of this now. They're getting very good at tracing, very good at tracking. I suspect we'll see we will see some cases in some schools. We got over 100,000 students, plus all the teachers that go with them and the staff that support them. So we will see some neighborhoods where we will see flare-ups. That doesn't mean we'll have to shut down the entire board. Will we have to shut down the entire province? Probably not. But will we see some schools where we suspend class for a week or 2 weeks? And that may be a class, it may be the whole school, it may be a grade. So we probably will see some of that. We may have to target some neighborhoods and really look at rolling that back. And to that end, I ask everybody watching, over the course of September, please try to wash your hands, wear your masks, hold back on those family gatherings, hold back on going out a bit. If we pull that back in, we'll be able to ease the opening of schools, which will make it easier for everybody come October, November, and December. The other one I'd like to push out for the people is it's coming up to flu season. Get your damn flu shot, particularly this year. We know it saves lives in a lot of years. This year, it's going to make it that much harder for us to isolate COVID if we don't know what's flu, what's COVID, what's flu and COVID, how are those going to overburden our system, how are those overburden public health. So it's free in Ontario. Go, get it done. If we can get that out earlier than later and get that message out there now as well.
Well, that is some great information. I know you had a super busy day. It was touch and go whether we're going to be able to get you. So thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure. Anytime.
That is John Marchand, trustee for wards 1 and 7, among many other things. And what a pleasure to have you in. Thank you very much. And we will be right back.
Hello, this is Sean Pynchon, and I'd like to play a song by Leadbelly. This is called The Western Cowboy. Who doesn't love a cowboy? Once I was a cowboy out on the western plain. Once I was a cowboy out on the western plain. I rode about 500,000 cattle working on the rail. Come here, cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Me and another cowboy went riding on your trail. Me and another cowboy went riding on your trail. I'm talking about a cowboy by the name of Hungry Bill. Come a cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Sitting on a rocking chair. Left my girlfriend crying, sitting on a rocking chair. Well, she said, Sean Pynchon, are you ever gonna come back here? Come here, cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Well, my cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Come a cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. No, no. Said once I was a cowboy out on the western plains. Tough cowboy riding with Jesse James. Oh, all the cattle roaming down on the range. Come a cow, yicky, come a cow, cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Come a cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Come a cow, cow, yicky, come a cow, cow, yicky, yicky, yeah. Ooh, cow, cow, yicky, come a yeah.
Shore Grill and Grotto has always been a part of the community, and during these changing times, we are still here for you. Although things have changed, it's constant change that made us what we are today. Our restaurant is now open and is still committed to making fresh, fabulous food. We use only the highest quality ingredients to deliver great food consistently. Relax in our welcoming atmosphere with over 6,000 square feet of outdoor patios. Come and enjoy our outstanding customer service that caters to families and corporate events, as well as private dining and functions in our event rooms. It is always what we have done. It is what we will continue to do. So, what are you doing? Drop by and see us. We would love to see you.
Shore Grill and Grotto, it's a sure thing.
Les!